Way too early, 2026 Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft. Dynasty Fantasy Football Rookie Drafts are right around the corner, and the NFL Draft is just 1 month away, which means it's officially rookie season. But what if we looked even further ahead, to when you're on the clock in your Dynasty Rookie Drafts? Before we know landing spots, draft capital, and hype completely changes the board, let's try our hand at a way too early 2026 Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft. Welcome to Devy Bros, where we break down Devy Fantasy Football, Dynasty Strategy, and the future stars of the NFL. I'm Brendan Borman, and I'm excited to dive into this class with you. If you want to stay ahead of your league mates, you are in the right place. Again, this is a way too early rookie draft, so we're not factoring in draft capital or landing spots. And when all that information comes to you, come back to Devy Bros and see how we change our rankings. So, at pick 101, we have Jeremiah Love. Love has the type of explosive 3-down profile that dynasty managers chase at the top of rookie drafts, especially with his ability to impact the game as both a runner and a receiver. There are shades of Jahmyr Gibbs to his game with the speed, big playability, and mismatch upside out of the backfield. He's been incredibly productive and efficient, but the real appeal is how he can create chunk plays and contribute in multiple phases. If he gets strong draft capital, which we think he will, this is the kind of running back who can quickly establish himself as a high-end fantasy asset. Think Bijan Robinson. Think, Saquon Barkley when he was coming in the league. It's going to be very exciting to see where Jeremiah Love goes this April. At 102, we have Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza is a precision-based pocket passer whose game is built on elite accuracy, timing, and decision-making. If you watched his run to the national championship, I'm sure you were impressed by his play. In high-leverage situations especially, I can see shades of multiple NFL quarterbacks coming to mind. NFL.com compares him to Joe Burrow. I don't really see that comparison as well as a few others. I think of like Matt Ryan, maybe even Kirk Cousins. But again, he is not going to create much outside of the structure that's in place, so protection and the system fit will matter at the next level. But in superflex formats, quarterbacks with this kind of accuracy and projected draft capital, which he's probably going to go one-on-one in the NFL draft, tend to just rise and hold their value. So in a superflex draft, if you have the opportunity to get Fernando Mendoza at pick 1 or 2, especially if you're a quarterback-needy team, there aren't going to be very many opportunities here in this draft, spoiler alert, in 2026 to get a quarterback that's worthwhile. So you might have to overdraft him just a little bit. Moving on to pick 103, we're going to start a run at wide receiver. Now, depending on who is your flavor of the month, whether that be maybe someone from Ohio State or someone from Arizona State, or in this case, we're going to go with the USC receiver Makai Lemon. Lemon profiles as a high-volume, quarterback-friendly receiver who wins with route running, timing, and elite ball skills. When I see Makai Lemon, I honestly think of Amon-Ra St. Brown and how he consistently creates separation and operates as a reliable target, really in all 3 levels of the field. He may not be a true burner, but the polish and consistency, who he can be, really might command targets early. I think he might actually thrive with someone who's a younger quarterback and, really just hone in on him as, a quarterback-friendly weapon. He seems to be safer. Maybe it's the volume. Maybe in a PPR league, he might be someone who gets a high floor. But I also saw the big play potential with Lemon at USC. So I'm going to personally put him here at the top of this tier and move on to pick 104, where we are selecting another wide receiver, Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate out of the University of Ohio State. Stop me if you've heard that before. A wide receiver from Ohio State going early. Tate is an ascending receiver with a really polished game for his age, winning with route tempo, body control, and strong ball tracking downfield. In my mind, when I see Carnell Tate and I think about the Ohio State connection, my mind goes to Chris Olave and how he separates at multiple levels and creates explosive plays down the field. He's not the most physically dominant build of a receiver, but the consistency and ability to win at the catch point or in the air gives him a pretty high ceiling. He's another player that I want to see where he lands, his quarterback, the system that he's in. But I do think that he has upside to potentially rise throughout the draft process, which moves us to pick 105, where we have Jordan Tyson. Now, I'm not going to lie, Jordan Tyson was one of my most owned Devy players as we came in to last offseason, and it really pains me that I have him at the end of what I would perceive to be this 3 wide receiver tier. But in my mind, Tyson is a well-rounded receiver. He can line up all over the field. And if you watched him play at all last year, he was peppered with targets from Sam Leavitt. Jordan Tyson's down there somewhere. But anyway, that's when he was actually on the field, because unfortunately he did miss a lot of time due to injuries. Again, Tyson is well-rounded. He can win with his route running, his body control, and his ball skills are exceptional. I really see a Terry McLaurin type of, young Terry McLaurin type of skill set, versatility, ability to consistently separate, and he's winning in really contested situations, which a lot of times he gets open. He has great moves, but the fact that he can do it with the ball skills also shows me that that's probably going to translate at the next level. And so I think that he's really not a risk in terms of how good I think he is, but really he's going to have this perceived thought of being injury prone. He had a clavicle issue in college. Again, he continues to have hamstring issues, so soft tissue, which kept him out of multiple games last year. And so, again, durability. If he can stay healthy, this is a player, Jordan Tyson, who could legitimately be the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class. And if you can get him at 105 in a draft like this, in your rookie drafts, maybe the 2026 class is not as weak as everyone is saying. Now, don't get me wrong. It's going to be, some of these prospects are not going to hit, right? And you have to pick the right ones. But when you're on the clock, don't just hit the draft button. Reach out to your league mates, see what they're willing to offer you in a trade. Maybe you can move down. Maybe this is a year that you can actually move up a lot easier than you could in past years. Just do not give away your 2027 firsts without understanding the opportunity cost that pick could get you next year, because the 2027 class seems to be very, very loaded. All right, moving on to pick 106. We have a player who is moving up draft boards very, very quickly, and that is Omar Cooper Jr. He is an intriguing prospect. Talk about upside. Omar Cooper Jr., he is a physical, versatile receiver. He's shown real production, 20 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, and really Fernando Mendoza made him look good, but again, maybe Omar Cooper Jr. is making Mendoza look good. Now, I don't like to throw around this comp very often because I think it's overused a little bit, but there are a little bit of Deebo Samuel when I see Omar Cooper Jr. I say that in the way he plays through contact, and he creates that yak, that extra yard. Again, once the ball's in his hands. He is a little bit unpolished when it comes to route running. I think he's got a little bit of work that he could do there. But again, you put him in the right system, and I could see Omar Cooper Jr. really even elevating his stock even more. Now, I loved him as a day 2, maybe late round sleeper, and it's encouraging to see his stock, at this stage of the game rising. But again, he's someone that, if we're talking about Omar Cooper Jr. in the mid to late first, sign me up. If we're moving him up to the early first, I'm going to probably not have as much Omar Cooper Jr. as I probably want in fantasy leagues. Again, it's an ascending player. His value could jump or really fall depending on how he does in the next couple weeks throughout the combine and all the other things that come with the NFL draft. But his ceiling could be higher than what a lot of people maybe expect, or definitely expected going back to a year ago. Which moves us to our first tight end. Yes, the tight end one of this class, and that is Kenyon Sadiq. Sadiq is exactly the type of tight end that we want in a tight end premium, especially format, which, again, this is a 12-team Superflex tight end premium mock draft. So if you play in a league like that, again, expect Sadiq to go off in the mid to late first. Sadiq, watching him at the University of Oregon was very exciting to watch. He did make some big plays. I know their offense at Oregon really transformed throughout the year, and again, they weren't quite as dominant maybe as a lot of college football fans or Oregon fans would have wanted. But again, Sadiq made the plays when he had to. I think he could be a focal point in the passing game. He's good enough as a blocker to stay on the field, which is very encouraging, especially at the next level. And I do think that we've been spoiled over the last few years of having tight ends come in and perform. Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers. And I don't know if Sadiq is that player. I do think that his profile is one that he could develop into a volume guy and give you kind of a weekly edge in PPR leagues or tight end premium leagues. But again, I don't know if he's the end of the tier, if he's the start of the next tier. Again, if I am spending a mid first round pick on a tight end and it's my own first round pick, and is Sadiq going to make that much of a change to my dynasty roster? Probably not. Again, so I might be looking to make a pivot before I selected Sadiq at the 107. But again, knowing what we know today, no landing spots, no draft capital, I'm going to just comfortably pick Sadiq and know that I trust the prospect. I don't think he's going to be a bust, and we can move on from there. Now, I'm doing a little bit of projecting here at the 108, and I don't think this person will go 108. I think he's going to go much later if he doesn't get the draft capital, or the positional scarcity is going to move Ty Simpson up a little bit earlier, because Ty Simpson is a quarterback. To me, there are really only two viable options that I could see being first-round picks in Dynasty Rookie Drafts this spring. Fernando Mendoza, we selected 102, and I think Ty Simpson is worthy of a pick right here at 108. Simpson is a developmental quarterback. He's a solid foundation. He's clean mechanics, good processing, and decision-making. I got to watch him beat my Missouri Tigers, make a heck of a fourth down throw. I thought we had Alabama dead to rights. But again, he makes plays when he has to. I would not say he has elite arm talent, and he plays really well within structure. So again, the system he goes into, I think, will be critical for how we evaluate Ty Simpson, but also how much draft capital is a team willing to spend on a guy like that. Again, Superflex, quarterbacks carry value, and so if you are unable to trade out of this pick and get a 2027 first, which again I think it's going to be harder, those 2027 picks are gold. You could do a lot worse than having a quarterback who, as soon as he becomes a starter or has the opportunity, there will be a selling point where you can get maybe more for your investment than you are actually spending on him in the moment. Plus, there's a chance that he could be good. Do I think that's the case? Probably not. I think I see more of a career projection along the lines of Mac Jones, which, again, if you're selecting a quarterback in the first round, you want something better than Mac Jones. But that's where we are here at pick 108. Moving on to pick 109, we have KC Concepcion. Mr. Concepcion was one of my favorite players in Devy a few years ago. He transferred, of course, to Texas A&M, and we got to see him in the SEC against really good defenses, and his twitchiness, his separation, route running, all the things that we knew he could do. He was a viable underneath option. I think he could be a quarterback-friendly option in the NFL. Do I see him being a fantasy superstar? I don't personally. I think of someone like Doug Baldwin, who, again, there were some years where Doug Baldwin was really good in fantasy. But KC Concepcion, really a difference maker of, go-to guy. Who can you find when it's third and short, when you need a first down? I think of, as a Rams fan growing up, I think of, Cooper Kupp. I think that's maybe the high-end upside play. But no, I want to see Concepcion, his draft stock, how teams evaluate him and value him when they have other receivers to choose from. But he just feels like a player who could rack up targets and become a reliable contributor. Maybe the floor might be Wan'Dale Robinson. So again, not someone that I personally want to spend a late first-round pick on, but I could see falling in this range, and maybe the NFL will show they value him more than I do. All right, pick 110. We are now moving into one of my favorite players. This was my most owned Devy tight end last year. I believed in Vanderbilt. I believed in Eli Stowers, and he did prove me right in the sense of his really stock did not fall off. Again, a lot of tight ends in Devy are super risky, and as we project into Dynasty Rookie Drafts, again, I think it's kind of a two-headed monster when you have Kenyon Sadiq as 1A and Eli Stowers as 1B. Stowers is a high upside tight end with a unique background. He was a former quarterback, if you don't know about Eli Stowers. And I think that his natural hands catching ability, he doesn't really use the body. He's a hands catcher. And his big radius will really help him in the NFL. But I really like his run after the catch ability. Someone like George Kittle has been super fun to watch in Dynasty over the years because as a George Kittle owner, you can count on not just those long catches, the yards, like the depth of target, the ADOT, but also his ability to make plays with the ball in his hands. And Eli Stowers has that same exact upside. Not the most polished route runner, but those other traits that I described are traits that you might want to invest into in a tight end premium league. Now again, I would love Stowers in the middle of the second round, especially if he does get NFL draft capital, but the draft capital has the potential to move him up the board. So it's kind of a catch-22. Again, this is a ceiling swing that could become a difference maker. And for this video, I'm going to put my plant down, put my flag in the dirt as Eli Stowers as the 110. All right, so next we have the 111, and we are going to Denzel Boston. Now, Denzel Boston is a player that I've actually watched quite a bit of film on recently. I've kind of gone up and down with Boston, and I had a really hard time coming up with a comp for him. But Boston is a big-bodied receiver who wins with toughness, ball skills, and strong red zone production. Those are all good things. And touchdowns are an amazing thing to have in fantasy football, but touchdowns are also unpredictable. You want someone who can get open with separation, and I'm not sure that Boston is that guy. However, he does play well through contact and consistently wins contested catches. So if he can do that, again, at the next level, that might be something that translates. He's not going to separate consistently, so his fantasy value will probably depend on the role and the usage that he gets. So again, that system he's in, the quarterback, the coach, how much they draft, the capital matters of how much of a leash they're going to give him. But again, I think he could be a reliable possession, red zone target, who could maybe provide steady value. Again, he's a player that I would love to see in the second round of fantasy rookie drafts. But if you have to take him at the end of the first, there is upside to return on your investment. And there is upside there. Again, if you can get a guy with double-digit touchdowns, the way the dynasty landscape is now, you get a 3-week stretch where your guy scores a touchdown every week, you can probably flip him for a lot more than you invested in him. And then we end the first round with a running back. So another player that I had to watch quite a bit of highlights on. I was familiar with his game, but Again, he's going a lot higher in some of these mocks that I've seen on the internet and I've participated in than I would personally be willing to invest in. But there are Emmett Johnson truthers out there. Johnson is a downhill, no-nonsense runner who wins with decisiveness, tempo, and consistency. He's not the most explosive back, but he does a good job keeping the offense on schedule and contributing in the passing game. To me, Johnson feels like a player whose fantasy value will come from role and volume more than upside. So again, we see that with running backs all the time in the NFL. They need opportunity, and sometimes opportunity is king. There might be a guy who's more talented, but if he's stuck in a committee, fantasy-wise, doesn't get the touches. So again, Johnson, someone that probably will not be on a lot of my teams, but someone that reminds me of Chris Carson from Seattle from a few years ago. Very productive when he had his opportunity, would just bulldoze people, had the speed, to be productive of what the hole got him, but again, was not, a top 5 player on a week-to-week basis. Sure, he had his plays, and I think Emmett Johnson has potential. He did show flashes, running in the Big Ten, but that will wrap us up for the first round. We'll kind of speed it up here in the second round. So we've got Mr. Jonah Coleman, who is going to be our 201. Almost selected Kevin Coleman out of the University of Missouri, but that would be crazy if we had Kevin Coleman going that high. Jonah Coleman is a steady 3-down back who wins with vision and reliability. He's not overly explosive, but he can handle volume and contribute as a pass catcher, which the pass catching is something that I really look for, in those running back prospects. Coleman, he was a Devy darling maybe 18 months ago. I wasn't a huge fan of the weight that he had, but he did have pretty much a transformation. He lost a ton of fat. He posted his BMI and all kinds of stuff on social media, and kind of brought me back in as intrigued. Kept him on my radar. But again, you're going to hear me say this a lot. Not someone I'm wanting to spend a first round pick on. I want to get him in the second round and again see what I have from there. Coleman to me is a role-based player whose value will come from opportunity. So that's the 201. We will now go to the 202. And speaking of opportunity, Jadarian Price. He did not have an opportunity to be the focal point, obviously, in the Notre Dame offense behind Jeremiah Love. We had Price, who, when he had his chance, made plays. I was really impressed. Price is a smooth, instinctive runner. He has strong vision and touchdown production. To me, when I think of Price, I think of Javonte Williams. And that would have been a negative thing to say maybe before last year, but again, Javonte Williams had a great season in Dallas. Price navigates traffic and finds the end zone. And again, I don't know if he's going to be a RB1. I think he's got solid complementary back upside with sneaky upside. No one's going to be like banging the table like, yes, I got the best running back in the class. But you could be surprised with if you get a guy like Price later than maybe he falls to the 2-8 and you're able to get a guy who can be a flex on your dynasty rosters, that's a win versus taking someone who completely flames out and you lose all value. So again, we've got Jadarian Price at the 202. I like that spot for him. And we're going to move into a wide receiver at the 2-3. We are going to go with Jeremy Bernard. So Mr. Bernard, here we go, out of the University of Alabama. So we've got to me, Bernard, he's a versatile wide receiver. He can line up in the slot, inside, he can run outside. And what I like about Bernard at Alabama is he really showcased the route tree. He could run not just slants and goes. He had a lot of things working for him. We did have Ty Simpson kind of looking for him a lot, and Bernard made big plays. He was kind of the go-to guy in Alabama. And to me, when I think of a comp for Bernard, I think of Robert Woods. Again, I'm a Rams fan. I did watch Robert Woods quite a bit, but even in Buffalo, Robert Woods, he kind of exceeded expectations. They're both fast. Again, they're both polished. I don't know if he's going to be an alpha, but I think he's a reliable depth option. I would not be surprised if Bernard has a long-lasting NFL career. And at this point in the second round, if you get a guy who's going to be on your dynasty rosters for a long period of time, I think it's a no-brainer. So let me know what you think about Jeremy Bernard. But 2-4 in the next pick here, we're going to go back to the wide receivers, and we're going to pick another Indiana Hoosier, Elijah Surratt. Surratt is someone who I was off of in Devy. He kind of proved me wrong. Again, how much of it was Surratt and how much of it was Mendoza, I'm not sure. But if you're looking for a big-bodied receiver, that big possession receiver who can win at the catch point, then Elijah Surratt is your guy. Now, I don't really like that type of receiver personally for my dynasty rosters. I like the more twitchy separation, yards after contact. But Surratt, he uses his size. He does have good body control. And to me, when I think of Surratt, I think of like Alan Lazard. Again, Alan Lazard had his moments where he put up fantasy points. But did you ever feel comfortable putting Alan Lazard in your dynasty lineups? Probably not. So for me, maybe in a best ball league, sure. But probably in my lineup leagues, I am looking to trade back or select a different player at this spot. Does he have upside? Sure. Could I be absolutely wrong? Yes, I am a lot, but I'm not really that interested in Elijah Surratt. At the 2-5, we're going to do a little bit of a projection here. I do think this is a player who might sneak up draft boards and might be a third-round rookie pick. But I like him, and I wanted to talk about him. So that is Max Clare. He is a tight end and is super athletic. I like super athletic tight ends. Rest in peace, O.J. Howard. Not really, didn't die, but, for dynasty purposes, he did. Max Clare is an athletic pass-catching tight end who can stretch the field. He offers mismatch potential and separation ability. So, to me, I think of maybe a Benton Strange as a comp. I think that, again, in tight end premium leagues, he's someone that needs to be on your radar in this range. But, again, the NFL is going to tell us how they value him with draft capital, and I think he's someone that could be easily a third or fourth round rookie pick, or if he does get the capital, like I think he might, you might have to use a second round rookie pick on Mr. Clare, which moves us into the 2-6. Now, coming into this rookie cycle, I was expecting to be talking about a Clemson running back or maybe a Penn State running back. And some of those players really fell off. Whether that was Nicholas Singleton, not him this time. We're going to be talking about his teammate, and that is Mr. Kaytron Allen. Again, spoiler alert, Nicholas Singleton is not drafted in this mock. I have a lot of Nicholas Singleton and Devy, and that probably is going to be a bet that I end up losing. But Kaytron Allen, he is a productive physical runner who wins with vision and patience. I think NFL teams are going to like Kaytron Allen because I think they know what they're getting with him. He's not someone who is going to probably be an RB1 top 5 dynasty guy, but I do think that especially early downs, he is going to be someone who gets the yards he's supposed to, maybe more. He has low contact balance. I think he is everything that an NFL team looks for when they invest in a cheap running back, someone they don't have to spend a lot of money on, but can get the job done. And Kaytron Allen, again, I had lots of Bijan in Dynasty. I got to watch Tyler Algier steal lots of touchdowns from Mr. Robinson. And I think that Tyler Algier and Kaytron Allen have a very similar game. So, again, you can do a lot worse than having a running back in the middle of the second round who has the opportunity, if the running back in front of him goes down, his value will skyrocket, but also someone that will produce and be a contributor in your dynasty rosters. So, I don't think Allen has the ceiling that other players do, but from a floor standpoint, Katron Allen to 2.6 could make a lot of sense. All right. Back to 2.7. I mentioned Clemson just a second ago when I mentioned Penn State also. And we're going to go invest in the 2.7 in Antonio Williams. Williams is a playmaking slot receiver with strong run after the catch ability. He profiles as a PPR-friendly option who can rack up touches in the right offense. Now, I heavily invested in Bryant Wesco in Devy. I got to watch Antonio Williams, got to watch TJ Moore, and really I was disappointed in pretty much all three of the Clemson wide receivers. Now Wesco, he did show a lot of flash before his injury, but I don't know. I think Cade Klubnik really brought all three of those guys down. Williams is someone, he's an older prospect. I think that he might showcase to NFL teams that he's worthy of being on a 53-man roster. And if he can make the team and be a reliable pass catcher, sure. I mean, this could be a good range for him. I don't see it as, definitely not an alpha on an NFL team, but maybe as a secondary piece, someone who, gets 60 to 70 catches a year, in the right system, that could be someone worth a dynasty rookie pick in this spot. All right, next we have the first of the Bells. I'm going to go with Chris Bell. Now, Chris Bell, I've seen him go anywhere from, the 2.1 to the 2.4 in some other mocks, but I have him a little bit down. I really want to see more in terms of his health. He does have a big physical frame. A lot of NFL teams crave that physicality and size. And again, when you see the size, you see the red zone upside. But he's coming off of a ACL injury, and he does have the path to be a depth contributor. I just don't see the upside in Chris Bell. There are some truthers out there, not one of them, again, but I do think that the upside he could potentially possess is warranted of a pick in this range. So, again, the 2.8, Chris Bell. Moving on to another player that I have 0 shares of in Devy. I've learned my lesson when it comes to investing in Tennessee wide receivers, but the NFL is going to tell us a lot about Mr. Chris Brazzell Jr. He is a vertical field stretcher with big play upside, and he had some big plays, let me tell you. But you know who I think of when I think of this young man is Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers. Watson was another player who rose up draft boards just like Brazzell Jr. is. He kind of came out of nowhere. And again, I think he's probably going to be worth a lot more than this pick, or he could be worth practically nothing. So again, depending on how you like to spend your second round picks, it could be worth the risk or a bad investment. But fool me once, fool me twice. I am going to stay away from Tennessee wide receivers unless it's Devy and we're talking about Mike Matthews, but that's neither here nor there. At 210, we're moving on to the last of our tight ends in this draft. And no, it's not Oscar Delp. Could he be drafted? Sure. But I'm going with Michael Trigg. I actually like Michael Trigg's profile quite a bit. He is athletic, another field-stretching tight end with red zone upside. I don't really know if he's going to be dynamic at the next level. I think he has the athleticism to be on the field, maybe a little bit more than I thought a year ago. He's someone that plays outside more like a wide receiver a lot. And again, if it's tight end premium, this is a fair range. If it's not tight end premium, there's no reason why Michael Trigg should go this high. So again, this is a Superflex 12-team tight end premium mock draft. And I like the kind of the dart throw here with Michael Trigg. Wanted to give him a shout out. I do have him comp to, let's say, a Gerald Everett, someone who, Did he score fantasy points at some point in his career? Yes. Did you ever feel comfortable starting Gerald Everett? No. But after the first couple tight ends in Dynasty, do you really feel good about starting anyone? I sure don't. At 211, we have another Bell, and that is Skylar Bell. Skylar Bell, he is a field-stretching receiver with speed and production. Bell is someone who has on film quite a bit of explosive plays. I do think he needs to develop some consistency. He has had some drops. He doesn't show the full route tree that maybe some more polished receivers have. But again, where does he end up? What kind of system does he run? Who's his quarterback? I think those are all questions that we could have. I do prefer Chris Bell to Skylar Bell. That's not saying much, but again, and that's the 211. At 212, we've got Mike Washington Jr. So Washington Jr., he is going to be the last pick of this draft, if I can find his pretty face on here. There we go. Again, size, speed, those are all good things with Mike Washington, and he did create chunk plays. I do think that Mike Washington Jr. is someone that, on film, if you're a film guy, you might have him a lot higher than the 212. There are quite a few running backs in this draft that I didn't even mention in this mock draft who would not surprise me if they were second-round picks. But again, it depends on philosophy, how you want to roster construct in Dynasty. And to me, this class, it's not as bad as initially as I thought it was. It does have some potential upside, but after the top few picks, there's a lot of projection, a lot of movement coming, and the NFL draft is really going to swing values one way or the other. So, again, I hope you like this content, but we have a lot of question marks. But that was our way too early 2026 Dynasty Rookie Mock. This board will change a ton after the NFL draft, but here on March 19th, this is where I feel comfortable putting things. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and especially comment below so I can get to know you and interact with you. And if you want to be a part of the next Devy or Rookie Mock Draft, definitely comment below. We'll get connected. Welcome to Devy Bros, and we'll catch you in the next video.